Hi everyone. So this is a very special episode. I have been following Arian for a long time. And if you're not, you should, because if you would like an emotional hug, uh, a piece of your day that will make you feel like, oh, everything I feel is right, then this is the guy. And as you know, my message is similar. I am very much about validating our experience and our emotions, and I've learned a lot from watching Ariane's videos, especially on Instagram. And so I really wanted to get him on the channel to have a conversation. And we don't know where it's going to go, but stay tuned because it will be interesting and you're going to get something out of this. So, hi, Ariane, how are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me.
Um, so as I say, I was drawn to your content just because watching your videos is very validating. And one of your key messages is about validation. And I know that you're writing a book at the moment called The Power of Validation, which is just such an epic title. Um,
Well, no, there's a chapter called Power of
oh,
Validation.
there's a chapter.
Yeah, the book itself, I think, is going to be called Human.
Ah,
Think.
nice. Yeah. So I've always been curious because you when I'm watching your videos, I'm thinking, oh my God, that makes so much sense.
Mm.
And it feels like you've been on a journey, like a really interesting, deep journey. And I'm just wondering how your healing journey started, where you were, where you are now. And yeah,
Yeah, well, my journey started very similar to most, which is a breakup of a relationship,
yeah,
which uh, it was a point in my life where I thought that all the dark places that I've been to, or all the undesirable places that I've been to, that I would never go again. And then I was with my partner at the time, and I was convinced that, right, this is it. This is the person I'm marrying. Our relationship's amazing. Everything's going to be great. And it just kept getting worse and worse. And I couldn't understand what was happening. And even though it was really, really bad, I still had the confidence that no, we'll be able to move through this. And it ended in crazy fashion, And there was one day where in the daytime we were living together, everything was all good, and in the evening she moved out 90% of her stuff. And like that evening, I looked around and the house was pretty much empty. And I was like, this morning we woke up and everything was okay. Like it was this huge shift, this huge
yeah,
change in my
yeah,
reality, which sent me down. I mean, in my book, I talk about it and I describe it as living inside of a bonfire. Like it was like I was trapped inside of this fiery, just all these flames, and I couldn't get out. And
yeah.
essentially, that was all of my trauma was being triggered at the same time.
Wow. So looking back, can you see what instigated that? I'm sure you've reflected so much on like what led to that point. What was your biggest sort of takeaway from that?
Well, it depends what level we talk about this. If I talk about it kind of like the human 3D level, it wasn't one thing, it was many things. It was
Yeah.
many things that bubbled up more and more, but essentially, you know, we weren't communicating well. And when you're not communicating well, the whole concept of communication is key in a relationship cannot be any truer.
Mm,
It really is like up there with probably the most important part of a relationship and the strength and the health of a relationship as well. And the fact that you would essentially not be able to communicate led to one triggering the other, which triggered the other, and these triggers just
yeah.
kept happening more and more. And then eventually it gets to a place where it blows up.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. It was a continuous invalidation of each other, a
Hmm.
continuous, I'm right, you're wrong. I need
Yeah.
to behave like this for me. I need you to be this version of yourself. Why
Mm,
are you being like this? What you're saying about me is wrong. What you're thinking is wrong. What you're feeling is wrong. And we were both constantly like that at each other. And eventually it just blew up.
yeah. Wow. Yeah. And that I suppose comes from like a level of unconsciousness within each person and maybe an unwillingness from one or both to be vulnerable. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, the unconsciousness is what essentially drives an individual or causes an individual to live in reactivity. So you're just constantly reacting, which is
yeah.
what survival mode is. You're
Yes.
constantly just surviving and you're reacting to your environment. So if your environment is triggering your wounds and invalidating you, you're constantly going to react
Yeah.
in that sense. And when you are reacting unconsciously, reacting isn't wrong.
No.
Like it's very normal. But when you're doing it unconsciously, you stay in that reaction and you can stay in that reaction for minutes, hours, weeks, months. Like you can stay in that reaction for a long time, depending on the individual. But it was just a continuous, kind of, I'm only out for myself.
Mhm.
You're triggering my wounds, therefore you're the bad guy.
Yeah. I can really relate to that. And I'm sure so many people watching this can. What would you say to someone who basically is aware of like their own wounds, their own healing, but
Mhm.
yet it's constantly reactive anyway. And no matter how much you try to bring a new approach to it to the other person, it still happens.
Well, again, the reacting isn't necessarily the issue. It's the issue of the willingness to become aware and work on the
Mhm.
reacting.
Yeah.
Um, it happens a lot. I speak to a lot of people who say my partner's not in the same place that I am. I'm trying, my partner's not trying. And that is one of the hardest places to be. I was actually there myself in
Hmm.
that exact relationship that I was talking about
Hmm.
because I could recognize, and I even started going to therapy. And I was saying to her, like, you really need to start going to therapy. She was like, no, I'm fine. I don't need to. And it was just it's a continuous battle. But at some point, there needs to be kind of an understanding of what am I doing? Like,
Exactly. Why am I here
yeah.
still trying desperately to make this work? Yeah.
Exactly. But if you're trying to make, I think Einstein said if you something about a fish climbing a tree. If you're trying to make a fish climb a tree, then like, what are you doing? Like, you can't. And it's the
That is a
same thing.
very good analogy.
It's the same thing, and it's like, well, that at that stage, the awareness needs to be, why am I doing that? What I'm doing,
Yeah.
not why am I trying to work on the relationship? Not that, because that's great. Like we should all work on ourselves and the relationships that we have. But
Yeah.
if that relationship keeps, if I keep hitting a brick wall every time I try to go forward, why do I keep trying to go forward?
Yeah.
That within me, and more often than not we have a lot of people who say like, well, they just need time, or just she doesn't understand. He doesn't really get it, and he's getting there. He's getting better, and it's like, well, yeah, but what level do you want? What level of relationship do you want your partner to be at in terms of willing to work on it? What
Hmm.
level do you want? Why are you waiting for your partner to kind of get it, but then not really get it? And then how long are you going to wait till they kind of get it?
Hmm.
What would you want? If I could just wave a magic wand and say, what do you want right now? And 100% of the time, they'll be like, I want someone to fully be on board the way that I am, at least the level that I am, to be like, yeah, great, let's work on this.
Yeah. It's like that real need of being like, we both know we've got our shit, basically. I've got my baggage, you've got your baggage. So I'm going to be triggered and you're going to be triggered. But we together can be a safe place for each other. And the willingness to be that it's an understanding that
Mhm.
we're going to be triggered. but that the other person isn't a threat. Because I think what happens in these situations where there's so many reactions is that your partner becomes like a threat,
Hmm.
and rather than the safe person that we originally hoped and wanted them to be. And then there's just this big crash of like disappointment and um
Back to your wounds. Yeah.
but yeah, back to the wounds. I mean, I like I say, I can just so relate to this because I've been through it myself.
Yeah.
And um I noticed within me that my desperation to um get him to understand, get him on the same page, was very much a belief within me and an old feeling from my childhood, my inner child, of basically, if I'm not seen, I'm going to die. Essentially, looking back at the experiences where that feeling is very resonant, like there were many times where it's like, I'm not seen and no one can see my experience and I'm going to be left and I can't survive on my own. So I need to be seen. I need to be seen because if I'm not, then I'm going to die. And basically, it goes back to survival, doesn't it? It's the nervous system just fighting to
Yeah.
be
Yeah.
seen.
Well,
And
it's necessary. It's built in your biology.
yeah,
We're a relationally dependent species. We're herd species and social creatures. An infant on their own would die 100% of the time.
yeah,
You leave an infant on their own 100% of the time, they would die. They
yeah,
cannot survive. Whereas other species, like horses, after 20 minutes of being born, they like get up and start walking.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
so, so human beings are built to use love and connection as a survival mechanism.
Hmm.
Now, that connection and love is emotions first and then physically after emotionally.
Yeah, yeah.
If you, and because of the time that we live in, I always call it the emotional dark ages. We're brought up in a way in society. I'm not blaming our parents or caregivers or anything, but this is the reality that we live in. We're brought up in a way that they don't know how to be there for us in an emotionally healthy way.
Hmm.
And that causes emotional distress
Yeah.
has been unresolved, which is what trauma is. That's
Hmm.
emotional trauma. Now, that emotional trauma doesn't disappear or go away. It's always there. We're just unconscious of it, unaware of it. And you will have experiences in your life where it will come to your awareness. That's what a trigger is. A trigger is bringing one of the unsafe emotional distresses that you've had in your past to your conscious awareness. That's exactly what a trigger is. And you will feel what you felt from that trigger as well. So, in a moment where you might be speaking to your partner, trying to get your partner to see you, to communicate, and then that's not happening, you're being invalidated, it shows you that wound.
Hmm.
Now, showing you that wound is not an issue at all. And I wanted to kind of bring it back to this is why you feel annihilation because of the biology that we are. When we lose that connection, it's annihilation for us.
Yeah.
It's literally death, which is because what that does is it forces us to be a herd again. If I'm a human being, will only ever choose to do anything because of the way that it makes them feel. Even if I
Hmm.
want my family to be safe, because that makes me feel peace, that makes me feel love, that makes me feel calm. Now, every single decision we make is how it feels. So if I'm feeling annihilation, the decision I will make, it will make me make a decision of pushing me more towards people, more connection, connecting with people, which will ensure our survival. Now, at an individual level as well, if I'm losing that connection, I feel annihilation, I'm going to make decisions to maintain that connection, which
Mm.
is why I will abandon my own needs. I will not really speak up for what I truly believe in it because I'm more reliant on that connection
Yeah.
than I am my own my other needs in that moment.
So it's really interesting because Gabor Mate, I've talked about this on my channel before, but I love how he simplifies this in such a easy to understand way where he's like, we have two needs as a child, um, attachment and to be ourselves, to
Mhm.
be who we are. And basically, what something happens where Um, basically a child cannot survive without the attachment. We need it to survive, like you're saying. And then as we are growing through our childhood, whatever, something happens where we can't be ourselves. So we choose attachment over being ourselves. And then that part of ourselves gets shut down. And
Yeah.
we learn an adaptation behavior to survive in our life. And then we think that's who we are. And we've suppressed that part of ourselves in order to keep the attachment. And then we go into our adult relationships still doing that essentially. And
Yeah.
then still trying to be ourselves, but not being able to because attachment is still the primal survival drive. Um, and it's so interesting because I like talk a lot about the nervous system and how how to understand what's happening in the body and what we're feeling. And I've felt and experienced so many times just a total shutdown,
Mhm.
like a complete shutdown of, feeling strange, feeling like I can't speak, feeling trapped, feeling something that's hard to put into words. But essentially, it all comes back to not feeling safe and not being validated or not knowing how to not being validated in that moment. And then that's the other thing that I wanted to lead into is that in the sort of healing community and manifestation community, there's a lot of talk of learn to validate yourself. You have to learn to validate yourself before someone else will validate you. And I've always had a bit of a problem with it, just in that, like, especially in romantic relationships and in any relationship, really, whenever there is, I think humans just need some level of validation and some level of like validation to be able to connect with people. Otherwise, we shut down parts of ourselves
Yeah,
around
yeah.
people.
The whole concept of you are everything you need is just incorrect. It's
Yeah.
100% wrong. It's insane to suggest that we're relationally dependent species, herd species, social creatures. We literally are built for connection.
Yeah,
We have
literally.
multiple needs that we need as well. The need that the feminine needs from the masculine and the masculine needs from the feminine. These are all needs that we need externally from ourselves. Um, there's a lot of either incorrect or unfinished advice out on the internet, especially with the spiritual community. Uh, the whole concept of learn to validate yourself first is actually it it unfinished. It can be taken the wrong way. It is actually true,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't expect validation from anyone else either.
Yeah.
It's a case of like boundaries. Like, for example, if anyone was to cross your boundaries, it's because you crossed them.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
only reason anyone can ever cross a
Yeah,
boundary.
that's the interesting thing because that's where I think that especially in the manifestation community, and a lot of my followers are following me because of a journey with manifesting a relationship, right? And there is so many people really wanting to manifest an amazing relationship. And I think what people really struggle with is where do I start and where does this person end and where do I begin?
Yeah.
Like, you know, because I've noticed within myself that if I can't own my experience, own and validate my experience, own and validate my emotions and what I need and what I'm feeling, then I cannot express it properly. I can't speak up for myself, and therefore I can't get what I need from another person, and I can't have the right boundaries in place, which then essentially is me abandoning myself and that part of me, which then causes my nervous system to shut down, that part of me to shut down, and you just get more smaller and smaller. And so I think, yeah, what you're saying is so true and so important because if we can't know, because I think a lot of people struggle to know what they even need or to actually recognize these parts of themselves because they're so attuned to needing the attachment.
Hmm.
Um, and they're fighting for that more than they're fighting for that place of authenticity and realness. So
Absolutely.
yeah, go on, sorry.
Um, if I've been there myself. The
Hmm.
breakup that I had that we talked about took me to the center of my pain. I tried for 9 months after that to try and get back with her. For
Yeah.
9 months, she strung me along. And I started my journey, I started learning, and I eventually just kind of pulled away and went, this isn't working. I need to look within more and more and more. And I tried to, do the whole manifest a specific person, manifest a partner, and I tried to manifest her back as well.
Yeah.
Um, so I've been down all the rabbit holes, like left, right, up, down. And I realized when I started learning that I was just trying to feel different
Mm.
because the reason why I had such a need for a partner was because of the way that I was feeling in that moment.
Yeah.
Because if
Yeah.
I have a partner, then I just feel better. Like I could go into, all right, well, if I don't have a partner, the meanings that I give, which is what my beliefs are, which is what's creating my reality, is that I'm not good enough, I'm unattractive, I'm rejected, I'm
Yeah.
unworthy, I'm not desirable. But then if I have a partner, then I am good enough. I am not rejected. I am desired. I'm loved. So it was to kind of make me feel different. And I realized that and I was like, okay, well, and then I learned integration. So I went into a full integration where I went to the depths. I connected to part of myself, validated, met the unmet needs, sat in healing water in the state of imagination and, did like full integration. And I remember coming out of it going, I feel exactly what I'm looking to feel
Wow.
in a
That's
partner.
amazing.
And I was like, and then I was like, do I want in that moment, do I want my ex back? I was like, no, I'm good. And
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, I was like blown away.
Yeah.
And then I got out of it, and then all the other thoughts and all the other parts in that moment start coming back. And then I was like, I could see what was happening. I was like, oh, I'm starting to feel like I want a partner again. I want this, and I was like, whoa. Now, that doesn't mean that you should just want to be on your own, because I even then realized, like, oh no, I still want a partner. And then the more work that I did on myself, it went from I need someone to I want someone.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's huge and different. And this is where like it gets there's such a gray area in this because a lot of people will be like, you shouldn't need anyone. And when you don't need it is when it comes in. And it's like,
Mhm.
but then there are so many biological parts of you that are going, I want to share my life with someone.
Yeah.
I want to connect, socialize, grow. Like it's completely okay and normal to want someone.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
the moment I attracted the my partner that I'm with now, which honestly is by far the best relationship that I've ever had. And it's growing more and more. This is a fully conscious relationship. She's honestly everything that I've ever wanted. The
Mm.
moment that she came into my life is when I was, I stopped needing it, but I wanted it. And I could understand that. But
Mm.
when you want it and don't need it, you're okay that it's not there now.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the difference. So this is where it gets a little bit great because on both sides, there's validity to the kind of way that you're feeling. But if it's a need, and my friends even said to me, because after that, my ex, that relationship ended for 2 years, I didn't go on a date with anyone. I didn't even hold hands with anyone. I didn't like sleep with anyone or anything like that because I was like, I need to understand myself. And I'm
Mm.
aware that if I'm sleeping with this person, it's meeting an unmet need. It's making me believe I'm better than if I didn't sleep with this person.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
making me believe that I'm more desirable. And I was like, why do I need to do that in order to confirm to myself that I'm desirable or, to
Mhm.
affirm to myself, even let's say. So I was I'm hardcore with this stuff. So and I did that, and my friend even said to me, "He's like, oh, you've not been dating anyone. Like, is there no one in your life?" And like people say that regularly anyway, and it kind of bugs you and everything. And it stopped when I was like, look. This is the first time in my life that I've actually learned to love myself.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. I
Yeah.
want to just be me right now and
Mm,
just be okay with who I am. And they were like, since then, she was like, oh, okay, cool. So
yeah.
it does get gray area in terms of what is going on, but it's like, like understanding yourself is the key to this life because everything is coming out of you. Your entire reality is a reflection of you, the conscious driver, even your human being. I'm not talking about your human being. I'm talking about you, the consciousness, the conscious awareness that you are.
Yeah.
Everything is expanding out of you, the conscious awareness.
That's where I think people can get a little bit confused because they feel so responsible. And where they're not conscious of something that they don't yet know, they think
Mhm.
that they're somewhere they shouldn't be, if you see what I mean. It's always a case of you're exactly where you're meant to be. But I think sometimes people think, well, what is it? What is it within
Yeah.
me that's creating this? Because this is like the opposite of what I want. And if it's me and if it's like everything's coming out of me, then what do I need to, and they panic and they think they've got to, you know, fix themselves and they, frantically will do courses and work out what's wrong with me, what's wrong with me. And all of that I think is an avoidance of like validating the self, if you see what I mean, like being with who you are now. Because yeah, there's nowhere to go. There's nowhere to get to. But um I think that what would you say to someone who is frantically panicking, thinking my life is in pieces and I'm creating it clearly, but I
Yeah.
don't know what the hell it is.
I would say a few things. Firstly, you're not broken, you're wounded. Is a
Mm,
very different thing. You don't need to be fixed. You need to heal.
yeah.
There's a huge difference. It's very understandable that you would have the attitude that I need to fix me. And it's very, very understandable that you would hear someone like myself or anyone say, you create your reality, and it would really, really piss you off. Really angry. Trust me, I was there. I did as well. And the concept of understanding that my entire reality is a feedback and my emotions are the communication to that feedback as well. Let's use that in this because it's relevant. If anyone was to say, hey, your reality is something that you are creating and you're angry about that, it's because what you're hearing is that it's your fault that everything sucks,
Yeah.
which is a triggered wound from your upbringing, from your experiences that you've had. Because whenever you were scolded, whenever you were told off, whenever you were rejected, lost that connection, and went into annihilation, you were told it's because of how you behaved. It's because of what you said. It's
Or
because of,
because of you, maybe who you have interpreted that you are. Like
yeah,
that's the massive shame wound, isn't it?
yeah, a huge shame wound. So just understand the anger that you feel to hearing that is actually communication to you. It's normal that you're angry, but it's communication. And if you want to move forward, you need to understand that. You need to allow yourself to be angry, to fully connect with that part of yourself and give that part of yourself safety.
Yeah.
Because if if the if if the rules of reality are the hindrance and the thing that's stopping you from being able to move towards and be able to change your reality, then first you need to address that hindrance in order to be able to move forward. Otherwise, you won't be able to move forward
Yeah. It's always when you don't address that, you constantly look out there for the answer. And
constantly.
as a result, you're powerless.
Yes, you are. And that's that's despair essentially. That's our wound of despair. Despair is powerlessness. And for someone who's constantly trying to change the 3D externally, it's because in despair.
Yeah, it's really hard to see. There's a few people in my life who just cannot help but and just are not willing to um take sort of to own their experience and own their reality, and they cannot see that they're wounded, essentially. They're very wounded, and they're constantly blaming and feeling so angry and so hateful of the world.
Yeah.
And
Well,
it's
that
so
wounding is the reason why they can't go towards it. The
yeah, and
wounding
it's
itself.
just it's incredibly hard to watch because you think, oh my God, you're in so much pain. You're in so much pain and you can't feel it because everything you're doing is, looking away from the pain. And if only you would allow yourself to feel the pain, if only you would allow yourself to go through the storm and be held while you do it, then you'd be on the other side of it. But I think it's very hard to explain to someone who is so much in that narrative. And I suppose all you can do is just let them go through their experience. And
Oh God, yeah. I've stopped trying to explain it to people.
yeah,
I only speak to people who want to hear what I have to say.
yeah.
That
When
doesn't
when
mean that doesn't mean I won't help anyone and I won't like give advice or anything to anyone, but I have no interest in trying to convince anyone of anything in that
no,
sense that doesn't want to hear it.
when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot of my clients and a lot of people that follow my channel who might be wanting to manifest a specific person or manifest someone in particular
Oh, we
to
should talk
evolve.
about this.
Huh?
We should definitely talk about this. I've made videos about this, and it's something
Okay.
that we need.
Well, lots of people will be very happy about that. So there's a lot of people who are following my content because of my journey with manifesting a specific person in a relationship. And over the course of my journey, I've been going, oh wow, I've just realized this and this and this. And I've realized, oh my God, I was so wounded. So wounded to, like you said before about your own journey.
Yeah.
Um, when you start realizing, oh, I need to manifest them because otherwise I don't feel worthy, or otherwise I don't feel good enough, or otherwise I don't feel what it is that I want to feel. And we completely project that need onto them and think that they will fix it. And there's an obsession, an attachment, and everything to it. But there is a lot of people on my channel on my who are following me and in the world, I suppose, who are wanting or in a connection, in a relationship with someone who is um completely unwilling
Yeah.
to see their avoidance, to see how they run away, to see how they shut down, to see what they're doing. But yet this person is trying desperately to convince them and to manifest a version of them that will evolve and be right for them. Um, So what would you say about that? What would you say to those people?
I would ask, why do you believe you're not good enough to get what you want to get
Yeah. Do you mean from them or in
in life?
general, in life?
In life.
Yeah.
Why do you believe you're not good enough to get what you want to have in life? What you want to
Yeah.
have in a partner, what you want to have in your career, anything, but we're specifically talking about a partner. Why do you believe that you need to work this hard just to have a default standard healthy relationship?
Basic needs, just basic human relational needs met.
Yeah.
That's what it comes down to. I think um it's so difficult for people, and I actually, what I found is people on this journey, they often come to me and they will say, I've got this relationship and I know we're meant to be together, and um I want to talk to you because you've done it. And they're very sure that the end result is them being together again. But what I've found, like what you have experienced in your own journey, is that the more that you actually do the work, understand these parts of yourself, understand that need, it's like I have a conscious creators group, and the intensity, the anxiety, the stress of not having this person in their life at the time is up here at the beginning. And by
Hmm.
the end of it, it's right down here because they've sat with parts of themselves. They've been validated by people. They've spoken things and heard things that they never knew about themselves.
Yeah.
And the more that we do that, the more we realize it was never about them.
No.
It was never about that specific person. It was about that specific part of ourselves that we couldn't understand.
So let's get deep into this a little bit because I love this conversation. There's two types of specific person when we talk about specific person. There's the specific person is in like that human being that exists. So whether that's Tom or Sarah or whatever, that specific person. And then there's the specific type of person. So I want to manifest a specific type of person that has these traits that,
Mm.
whatever that is, even down to like the color hair that they have or whatever. So whichever one that we're kind of going to, if you're going towards I need or want to manifest that specific person like Tom or Sarah, you need to question yourself why you're putting everyone else in the world off the table.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think about yourself that only this one human being on a planet of 8 billion human beings, well, let's say if you're going in a heterosexual relationship, 4 billion, 4 billion human beings that can only give you like, it's not reality. That's not how it works. And what
So
is
go on. Sorry, go on.
again, it's about what I think about myself because
Yeah.
my self concept is the driving factor of my behaviors, is the driving factor of my beliefs, is the driving factor of what reality is being created.
Mm.
So if I believe that this one single human being is the only one out of all of these other billions of human beings in the world, then I need to question why I think that. Why
Mm.
do I not think that I can uh, attract someone that has all of those traits and more? Why
Yeah.
do I believe that? All right, well, Tom has 7 traits that I love. Why would you think that you can't attract someone else that has 14 traits that you love?
Mm. It's
So,
really interesting because my theory with it is that, and again, based on my own story, is that so when uh my dad left when I was 4, 5, and he went traveling, and he was in and out and in and out, and never really emotionally available. Very like in my life, as in I knew he was there. I could ring him. We'd go on holidays and things like that, but it was very in and out. And there was, parts of his personality and things that were different to other members of my family. And when I met my partner, my theory is there was such a resonance, such an immediate um, sense of
familiar.
acknowledgement of familiarity of he's just like that. He's just like my dad. And this person that I was so drawn to, my my partner, he just wanted to go traveling. He was never really there. He was away. And so it's almost like that wounded part of me was like, if I can get this distant character who's never really there to love me, then that wounded part will be healed. And it can only be him because I've not met anyone else who is so familiar as he is. And so my theory is that we attract people who, on some level, I read that there was a someone said that whenever we're drawn to people who are very remind us of our childhood in like people in our childhood, whether that's positive or negative traits, and we can sense them almost immediately when we meet them. And it's like maybe an energy or the way they look or some type maybe humor or something. It's like an immediate, I know this is so familiar to me, and it draws us in.
That's the
And
attraction.
yeah, and depending on where we are in our journey, we're either going to be really drawn to those negative parts that remind us of our childhood and what needs to be healed, or we're going to be drawn to that like lightness and that play and that fun, because we're more ready to experience that and we feel safe within our nervous systems. But for me, I think, oh my God, he was so familiar that that specific person, only that one, was the one that was going to make all of this okay. You know, that if he loved me, then I would be complete, essentially. And
Yeah,
so I
if I
see it
can.
all the time with my clients that actually when we go back, there's such a familiarity with this specific person. Um, and that when we look at those wounds and you come to a completion with them, you see them, you validate them, the specific person doesn't seem so important anymore.
Yeah, absolutely. It's that attraction. A lot of people think attraction is physical. It's not. It's in encompasses in all aspects of reality,
Yeah.
energetically, smell,
Yeah. Yeah.
physicality is like sight. So and all the senses that you have, there's attraction. But for the kind of example that you've given is, well, it's so familiar. And
Yeah.
what is familiar to me is what I learned love is. So this is why people will stay in abusive relationships because they were abused as a child, and that is what they learned love is. As a
Yeah.
child, my version of love was different to your version of love
Mm.
because I had the experiences of my life and you had the experiences of your life. So for you, that was very much, oh, this is love because it's so familiar and this
Yeah.
person truly loves me because of that
Mm.
manifest in the sense of spiritual manifestation that was created in order for you to be able to connect to the parts of yourself that were wounded because of the experiences that you've had as a child with your father. So now this person is essentially the mirror for you to be able to connect to those parts.
Yeah.
And you know the the drive we have to want to um be with this person and get this person back or think anything like that is a drive of I don't want to feel whatever I'm feeling. I want to feel better. Now, if that feeling is anxiety, shame, guilt, fear, anger, despair, apathy, whatever it is, then it's going to push me towards changing the experience. So this is where a lot of people will like try to change their partner instead of
Yeah.
doing the work themselves. They'll be like, you need to stop doing that and you need to do this. And the only reason anyone ever says that is because whenever you do this, that, it makes me feel like this. Now,
Yeah.
it's not like, oh, you shouldn't communicate that to your partner. You should, but understand that if you're constantly just doing that, if you're constantly just trying to make yourself feel better by other people changing themselves and changing their behaviors, you are 100% trapped. You are a prison to your external reality.
Hmm.
You have no control in terms of your own life because you're constantly reacting to your external reality and you can't control anyone. You cannot
No.
control anyone. You cannot take anyone's free will away. Even if you hold a gun to someone's head and say, you need to do this, otherwise I will kill you, they still have the free will to choose to die.
So if if because this is where again I think people get confused because if you're going to a person, a partner, and you're saying, you know, um, when you said that, say it the healthiest possible way you can. When you said that, I felt, not you made me feel this, because obviously that isn't the case. It's when you said that, it activated that wound that I have within me, and I'm feeling this. So, just wanted to express it to you, and hopefully it lands in a safe place where the other person gets, oh yeah, you've been triggered by that, and I can see why, blah blah blah. There's a healthy conversation about it. But when you're, because a lot of people like take what you've said and think, well, then I have to stay because it's me. It's my thing, my trigger, my responsibility. So I have to stay and work on that. And um Because if I don't get to the point where I'm not triggered by that anymore, then I'm not healed. And I'm just going to bring it up in the next relationship, in the next one. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, but what do you mean by having to stay?
What I mean is having to a lot of people think that in order to outgrow this wound that's being activated, that you're in the right place if you're being consistently triggered by it. And
Yeah, I mean that will definitely help, but even a healthy relationship will trigger those things out of you as well. Not just
yeah,
an
so that's where I think people the blurriness is because people that's why I think people stay in maybe unhealthy situations because they're thinking I'm healing, I'm growing, I'm being triggered. So there's something in this for me. There's something that I can go through, but yet they're with someone who's completely unwilling
Yeah.
to validate their experience, to sort of be there,
Yeah,
but
that
they
that's just a fantastic way that we convince ourselves to stay.
yeah,
It's a very clever way. It's where the ego is taking the identity of kind of like the spiritual healing aspect. Uh,
yeah,
what
yeah,
it's
yes,
like.
that's it. It's like you're spiritually on.
But realistically, the goal is to go towards self-love. One of the
Yeah.
best questions, and it was from Teal Swan. She said that I've used a lot, and I used a lot in my early stages, was whenever I was unsure, I learned from her to ask, what would someone who loves themselves do?
Yeah.
And in these moments, and I tell you what, now, if you were to ask yourself that question in those moments, the answer wouldn't be stay
No. Because
relationship.
you think about like I just think is it yeah, is it making you happy desperately trying to
Well, I mean, people that are in that situation don't understand happiness. But
no.
that's not because they're stupid or anything. It's just happiness is a state, it's not an emotion.
Mm,
So a lot of people think happiness is a continuous state of joy. That is not happiness at all.
no.
At all. You Happiness exists in this reality. This reality has contrast, is duality. So you're actually in if you don't feel sadness, you can't feel joy.
Yeah.
If you don't if you're not weak, you can't get stronger. Like
Mm,
you cannot experience anything without duality. So for someone who's happy, it's not someone who has learned to continuously stay in this emotion of joy or enlightenment or love. It's someone who is very authentically okay with being in the undesirable
yeah.
emotions
Being
because
in the spectrum of everything.
being, yeah, is completely okay being up and down. And that's how you also enjoy, everyone talks about it's not about the goal, it's about enjoying the journey. You enjoy the journey by being okay with being hurt, by being okay with being uh in your despair or your anger, and you're working towards it. And the only reason mainly people aren't okay with it is because they don't know what to do with it. They don't know
Yeah.
how to get out of it. When
Yeah,
you
it's
learn how to get out of it, it's not as bad. When I
mhm.
learned the tools, and this is literally the main reason why I do what I do.
Yeah.
Because as soon as I started learning the tools, I was like, oh, it's okay. I
Hmm.
invited anxiety up. I was like excited when these parts of me were coming up. But before I was terrified. I didn't want that to happen.
No.
This is how you find happiness, is learning how to be okay with the broad spectrum of all emotions and how you feel and where you're going, because that's how you grow. No one can ever grow with trying to avoid. Like you just can't. You cannot grow.
Yeah. This is okay, so I've got a few things to say that are relevant to like the manifestation community about this. The first thing that I want to say is that so I have a 1-year-old son and he absolutely hates getting his nappy changed. And I look at him sometimes and I think, if only you would just I know this is uncomfortable. I know you hate it, but we'd get there much quicker if you just let me finish this, or if you just sit with the discomfort a bit, it's going to be over really quick. Obviously, he's a baby, so he's got no comprehension of this. But sometimes, essentially, he's in massive resistance to getting his nappy change, massive resistance to sitting with that discomfort. And so it takes a lot longer, which is basically what happens whenever we try and suppress our emotions, affirm over it, affirm it away, um, try and live in the end instead of being with what's there.
Mhm.
Everything takes longer. And I think in the manifestation community, a lot of people have watched hundreds of videos. Say these affirmations and you will get X, Y, or Z. Say these affirmations, it will reprogram your mind if you listen to it all night long. And then you'll wake up with a new self-concept. And you have to live in the end. You have to live in the end of the wish fulfilled all the time. Otherwise, you're going to attract with your negative thoughts and feelings something you really don't want. And
Oh,
so
I could, yeah.
undoing this really unhelpful teaching or unhelpful interpretations that people have from this is like really trying to shift the wheel in a lot of people who are there. Um, and it's like really trying to turn the tide because honestly, the amount of people who are stuck in, I'm so scared of my negative thoughts and feelings and they're going to manifest. And therefore, they're in resistance to their life and themselves and those parts of themselves. So, what would you say to these people?
I could talk for hours about this.
Yeah.
I um I've been down those rabbit holes. Um, First of all, affirmation. Essentially everything is a tool. Okay, everything like healing, affirmations, breath work, meditation, they're all tools. You can use a tool in the right way or in the wrong way. And this is again where it gets a little bit muddy and gray area. It's not wrong that affirmations will rewire your mind. It's not. But if you use it wrong, it won't.
Yeah.
So your reality is expanding out of you. The manifested 3D reality that you're experiencing is a mirror of you. It's a reflection. So I wouldn't even call it the law of attraction. I call it the law of mirroring
Hmm.
because it's a mirror of you. In that mirror, you are attracting what you are mirroring. Um, you are multiple parts. You're not one part. You've heard of multiple personality disorder. That's when it's really out of control. But every human is like that. You are multiple parts. And when you are triggered, you're not triggered to feel an emotion. You're triggered to become a part of yourself that you are unconscious of that is carrying a suppressed emotion. So
Yeah.
you are constantly changing from this part to this part to this part all day, every day. We've actually changed a few times whilst we've been talking. That's how often it happens.
Mm.
Now, every single part of you is you. Your reality is manifesting based on your beliefs and knowings. So, what you believe or what you know, which is what is manifesting, your self concept is from everything that you believe creates your self concept. Everything you believe isn't just from one part of you, it's from all of the parts of you. There is 17 different parts that all believe that I'm rejected. So they are all giving energy to I'm rejected. Your belief of being rejected is manifesting your reality. So it will mirror to you how you believe you are rejected. That will happen by you putting yourself out there and someone not wanting to be with you. That
Mm.
is the way that your belief of being rejected is being manifested. Now,
Mm.
the communication of that rejection is your link to the part of yourself that believe you are rejected, which is creating the manifested reality you have. That's why I say how you feel is correct 100% of the time, because it's communication from you to you about you.
Mm.
So by using that communication, I can integrate the parts of myself that keep coming up to my awareness from my experience in my manifested reality of being rejected.
Yeah.
And when I keep integrating those parts of myself, and at the same time, I can use the tool of affirmations to show how or to create beliefs that I'm not rejected.
Yeah.
And I'm doing those at the same time, then I'm tipping the scales.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes sense.
But if you're just trying to affirm or just trying to find a biohack or just trying to do these little hacks here and there and everything, it's not going to work.
No.
The There are two main factors of what you need to do to change your reality. All the other stuff are like tools to add to it.
Hmm.
Because you are multiple parts, every single part of you is playing a role in creating your reality. Every single part of you through the actions, behaviors, beliefs, and knowings. So you need to understand yourself, raise your self awareness, and integrate any part of yourself that is that holds a belief that of I am loved, I'm unloved, I'm not good enough, I'm unworthy, I'm rejected, I'm unloved. You know, we need to understand and integrate these parts of ourselves.
Mm.
That is the main one. Like that is the main one. The second big thing is taking action.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'm integrating, but then I will need to put myself out there in order to make different decisions in the moments where the same thing might be manifested. So,
Yeah.
for example, I will put myself out there again, and if I'm rejected again, how am I going to behave in that moment?
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about business. If I'm wanting to grow my business and I'm just staying inside internally and trying to manifest my success, I'm not going to be able to create it because I'm
Mm.
not taking action. I'm not, promoting myself on social media. I'm not creating what I need to create. I'm not connecting with people. I'm not learning what. So those are like the two main ones. Everything else, affirmations, breath work, meditation, are all tools
Yeah.
on the path of using those two main things
Yeah.
to create any reality that you want. And you can literally create any reality you want. You just have to learn how to use your entire reality, which includes your emotions, which includes your thoughts, as a feedback to you, the conscious awareness that you are.
So this is so interesting. I have loads of things to say. Again, everything you say, I'm like, yeah, and then this, and then this. Oh my God, we could talk for hours. But what I have found where people get stuck is that when you essentially, it's like, you know how the wheels on a cog, you've just been working this way and life has been responding. You did this, and then the wheel does this, and you did this, and the wheel does that. When you do something different,
Mhm.
the wheel jams temporarily while it's trying to find its new rhythm. So let's say you've not been setting boundaries, you've not been saying what you want, you've not been you know, uh doing with just you've not been expressing your truth in some way, and then you start doing it, you might get a reaction from your reality, which is like, hang on a minute, this isn't who you are. I don't know this, and I don't know what to do with it. So there's a bit of a jam, there might be a conflict, there might be a disagreement or whatever. And then what happens is that rejected part of, oh no, I'm being rejected, this isn't going well, I'm being invalidated again, will come up.
Mhm.
And then in those moments, it's the action of sticking with this new way of being,
Mhm.
essentially embodying who you want to be, that will create the change. But people find it so hard because it takes courage to do something different. It takes leaping into the unknown. It takes not knowing what the hell the outcome's going to be, not knowing if you're doing it right, which is essentially you can't do it wrong. But, by doing something else, some part of you, another part of you will jump up and go, oh no, what are you doing? We've been living in this way for our whole lives, and now you're doing something else. I don't know who you are anymore. I don't know who I am. And it's so interesting because it goes into the whole conversation about identity and authenticity. We don't feel authentic when we are changing our patterns because we haven't been that version of us before. And so it can feel like really confusing to change a pattern, to, in business, to say, I'm raising my prices,
Yeah.
and then feeling like the part of you goes, oh no, you can't. You can't, that they're all going to reject you. No one's going to buy it. No one's going to no one's gonna you'll die because you won't be able to survive or afford life anymore if no one wants to there's all sorts of things that will come up.
Yeah.
Like, it's what I think we spoke about this last time when we talked before. Um, you mentioned how it's about there's a bit of a grey area, a bit of a period of I'm doing this new thing. Maybe the world hasn't caught up yet, but I'm still going to do this new thing. And then eventually the world catches up.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And it's really, really challenging. The courage thing, you're exactly right. The best way to kind of move forward with that is to learn to be there for yourself no matter what.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because even if I say this to all parts of myself, I was like, I don't care if 100% of the people in my external world reject me. I'm here for you. I
Yeah.
don't care. My partner's the safest person that has ever existed in my reality. She
Yeah.
really, truly is. And I still tell these people, even if she says no, I'm still here for you. Like, don't
Yeah.
worry. And that gives you the courage. It's like holding your own hand and moving forward. And
Yeah.
it's hard. Like, don't get me wrong, it's hard, but something being hard doesn't mean it's a reason not to do it.
No. You
And
know, oh sorry, go on.
uh, uh, to kind of move on to what we were saying there, in terms of like changing price or the reality just catching up, is you're essentially attracting certain people to you right now because of the self-concept you have, because of the way that you're doing things. So,
Yeah.
you know, I've I have a specific price for my services. I didn't start with that price.
No.
And I was attracting a lot of people that I was essentially putting out there myself in that sense. And then when I raised my prices, I attracted different people. And then I raised my prices, and then I found myself attracting not different people. And then I wasn't making sales. And I was like, what's going on here? Like, what's
Yeah.
happening there? So then that was a challenge in itself. But a lot of people, it's very easy to kind of get lost and go, all right, well, 3D, 3D, 3D. And it's like, right, but 3D is still being manifested. So even in the scenario where, let's say, I would lose my house and I'd be on the street, that's still communication. Like, why did that happen? What
Mm.
is happening? So, and I never tell anyone what to do because it's not empowering.
No.
They'll always rely on me. But whatever decisions you make, it's going to bring fear up. And it's like, well, understand that fear. Don't stay in that fear, and don't kind of live in the fear. Understand the fear. See what that fear is about, and then take action,
Mm.
because the universe will manifest in the way that is going to be beneficial for you. But you have to figure out how
Mm.
that benefit is coming. For me, there was many times where I was like rock bottom in my company. And it forced me to learn something new. It forced me to go down a different direction. It forced me to like go, no, I can't do this. And I was like, oh, and then I like got a little bit ahead, got my head up a bit off water. And I was like, oh, that was scary. Then I looked back and I was like, whoa, I've grown so much.
Mm.
Now I can use Canva. Now I can do this. Now I've learned this about marketing. Now I've learned. And I wouldn't have if I didn't go through what I went through. So,
Yeah.
and you find approval, and I it's so easy for me to say this, and I get it for the people that are not at the stages where like I am right now, to be able to say this, because when I was at the early stages, I would be like, shut up. Like, it does my head in when I hear some of that, but it's hard work, and you need to learn how to work hard, not necessarily destroy yourself, but in terms of, you're trying to grow to become this other version of yourself, and it requires hard work, hard
Mm.
internal work, hard external work. And if you're not able to move forward, again, that's communication. Why aren't I moving forward? What
Yeah.
believe there? What's happening there? So if you just simply learn the tools of self-awareness and understanding yourself, which is why that's the main thing that I teach. If you literally, you'll be able to achieve anything. You will be able to achieve anything in this world.
But
Anything.
how did you then, in your business, how did you go from in that place where you were saying, oh my God, no one's buying anything. And I've raised my prices and maybe I shouldn't have. Maybe that was a mistake. All those fears that came up. What was your process to moving through that then?
Well, it was again, everything is the two main stuff we talked about: internal exploration and action.
Yeah.
So my internal exploration is, why do I believe I'm not good enough for that? Like, what's going on there? And that will take me to certain things. It even took me to, it wasn't necessarily a belief that I wasn't good enough for that price. It took one of the parts that it took me to was part of myself that believed that I wasn't a good provider for my son.
Mm.
So it was like it manifested a reality where I couldn't provide for him because
Yeah.
I wasn't getting that success. So I was like, right, that part of me needed to like come up as well. So that reality manifest. So it's to bring parts of yourself and awareness and lessons to you. Do you know how much? Do you know how much I learned about money without having money?
Yeah. True.
So much I've learned about money. The more I've learned more about money in the times where I've not had money than when I had it.
Yeah,
Like
it's
so much.
when you so when you said, because this is what I think what people who are watching this might be like, okay, so that part of you came up, and then what? What did you do with it? How, like you notice, oh, there's a part of me that doesn't believe that I can provide for my son, and so it's manifested. But then what? Then what when you've acknowledged that, then what did you do to shift it?
Yeah. Any answer I give will invite more questions, which is
Okay.
okay. Which is okay. But I'm gonna give you the top level stuff.
Hmm.
The toppest level is integrate. I you learn how to you need to learn how to integrate parts of yourself. Integration happens in so many different ways. It can even happen to someone who's unaware. Like an integration is a resolution to an emotional unresolved emotional distress from the past. That's essentially what an integration is. But that integration can be done through the awareness of it. Like, so that's done. It can be like just allowing yourself to feel a part of yourself. That's an integration. It can be someone saying something and you going, oh, yeah, like that's an integration
Yeah.
because it changes your views, it changes your belief. But there are different levels and there are parts of yourself that require a much deeper exploration of the inner self.
Mm.
And this is why I teach the main thing that I teach with my I've got a framework called the inner awareness framework is how to go deep into integration.
Yeah.
Um, but essentially the top levels, what you're doing is through you sit with it and the awareness is the beginning part. So it's like, oh, a part of me feels like this. I'm going to sit with that feeling. I'm going to allow that feeling to take over my entire body. I'm
Mm.
going to immerse myself in that. When I'm doing that, I'm going to consciously allow myself to feel what I feel. I'm going to consciously allow myself to think what I think without trying to reason, without trying to work out, without trying to invalidate. So I'm going to become this part of myself. Doesn't matter if this part of myself is saying things that are not logically true. Like that's irrelevant because all realities exist and this part is experiencing a certain reality. So I'm going to
Mm.
become this part. And when I do that, I'm fully connecting. And in my internal world, we use our imagination to connect and communicate with our internal world. Like that's what our imagination is. Without your imagination, you have no access to your internal world. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I don't have it. You know, you do. Imagination is not visual seeing, it's imagination. Um, so I connect this part of myself. I validate and I find out what what experience this part comes from. So what memory could be a memory from my childhood, it could be a memory from any point because you can experience trauma at any point, and you could experience the same type of trauma multiple times. And essentially, what you're trying to do is you're trying to aim for the first time, but sometimes you got to go through. Sometimes you can go straight to the first time. This one was when my son was 1 year old, and him and myself and his mother, we ended the relationship when he was 1. And I remember he was asleep on my bed, and I was looking at him, and I was like, I'm sorry that I can't provide for you. Like I felt like a terrible father, someone who couldn't do anything. That was extremely traumatizing for me. And that's what came up.
Mm,
So I allowed myself to experience that memory fully. I immersed myself. I put my awareness in the awareness of that part of myself and allowed myself to feel the despair, the anger, the guilt, the shame, everything that was coming up, the sadness.
yeah.
And after that happened, because now me, the observer part of me, has become the safe figure to myself, to all parts of myself, I was able to communicate with that part because I'm multiple parts. I validated that part of myself. And then I try to work out what unmet needs are there. And because you're in a state of imagination, you can meet any need at all.
Mm,
Sometimes when you communicate and connect to child selves, it's like, I want ice creams. All right, here's some ice cream. And again, this is top level stuff. So then from there, once you meet the unmet needs, that's the integration. Then you do a few more things to integrate, and then that's the integration.
yeah. Oh, that is, you definitely should do a short on that little bit there. That was amazing. The part about you recognizing that trauma of that pain that you had in that moment.
Yeah.
There's one thing that I was taught once, which is a really nice sort of way of doing that, which was to imagine that you're in a white room, like a doctor's uh sort of waiting room or something like that. There's nothing but white because that, blocks out all of the noise of anything else that might come into your imagination. And you're there as you, imagining that your higher self is there. And then you've got all these little parts of you sitting on different chairs. So you've got the part of you that's angry going, "Argh!" And you look at their physicality, you look at the way they're sitting, or there might be an anxious part of you, there might be a different, all the different parts. And, imagine their physicality, how they're embodying whatever it is that they're feeling. And then this, grounded part of you can say, is there anything you need from me? Is there anything you want to say? And you go and you speak to each one of these parts in this room and you ask them what they need. And whenever I've done this, oh my God, there's been such a like completion and a sort of,
It's integration. Yeah.
and yeah, and I didn't realize it was integration until you said that. But yeah, it's really, really powerful. And another thing is like imagining, this angry part of you is maybe sitting on a chair in the other side of the room and you talk to them. You just have a
There,
conversation.
there are many angry parts within you, especially anger. Anger
Oh,
is
yeah, it's a suppressed,
so rejected.
shamed
So
emotion. Yeah.
yeah, I regularly talk about how anger is okay, it's good, it's right, it's fine. Everyone's like healthy anger. Like, no, anger. Like it, the emotion itself isn't healthy or unhealthy. It's the behavior
Yeah.
that is unhealthy. So when you say
Yes.
like healthy anger or unhealthy anger, you're still making anger wrong.
Yeah.
You're still making some element of anger wrong, and anger is not wrong. Anger is an emotion. It's a very, very valuable, helpful emotion.
Survival tool. Um,
Exactly. It's how you A, stop people from doing what's not okay, and B, it's how you know that what's happening isn't okay.
yeah, exactly.
It's
You
how
know,
you know that someone's like crossing your boundaries. It's so beneficial to you.
in well, so I recently did a retreat in Devon, and one of the best days we had, the most powerful days, was when I brought some boxing gloves and some pads, and everyone got in a circle, and it was the anger circle. And
Mm.
I stood there with the pads, and I was like, say what you needed to say. And oh my God, it was so cool because these people were like, I'm not really angry. Not like, I don't know if I've got any. I don't really like being angry. So I don't want to be angry at this person. But I was like, it's okay. Just say what you need to say. Maybe have a little tap. And it was like, at first, it's just timidly like, I didn't like it when you did that. And I didn't, that really annoyed me. Well, I'm so annoyed. And then this, and fuck your mum. And fuck this, like real anger, real like raw um just the purity of the anger. And then what was so cool about it was the safety in the room of like, yes, You're allowed to feel this. You're allowed to say that. It's allowed to exist. And like, the rest of the group were like cheering, going, come on, you can do this. And like at the end, the most powerful thing was like the the grief came up.
Mhm.
And then underneath that anger was this grief and this permission to let it out. It's like like a cylinder where there's like anger's on the top, underneath is something else, and then there's grief underneath it. And he had to like get the anger out
Yeah.
and then get the whatever else was there out and then allow the grief to be released. And oh my God, the connection that we had that day, of, we'd have a massive release of this anger that was so timidly um there at first and then came out, and then the tears and then the hug and then the sort of like integration of that's okay, it's okay, and like I'm celebrating you. It was so powerful. And I think, yeah, I'm so interested in anger as well, just because, oh, that was another thing. Oh God, here we go. But whenever someone else is angry, I find that I'm so triggered by that, and I know that that's because I've got my own suppressed anger.
It's
And
it's unsafe to you.
yeah, and it doesn't feel safe. And, any kind of like snappiness or energy that feels angry will immediately make me go like this.
Yeah.
And um I'm always curious about my response to that and my defensiveness and my um unwillingness to hold space for it, you know?
So I'll tell you.
Go
So
on, tell
anger
me.
is a cover emotion, like you just explained. You go under it to find other emotions. Anger is a cover emotion. It has fear under it 100% of the time. More often than not, it has despair as well.
Yeah,
Grief is one as well, but grief is like there's always fear there with anger, which then you get to grief as well. And the despair is because you're angry because you feel powerless to change what you want changing, which
yeah,
is what anger is. So anger, whenever you're in anger, it's a huge communication to you that there's something that is fear and you feel like you're powerless to change.
yeah,
Now, let's say our parents would get angry. They would be triggered to feel that because we're not behaving the way that they want us to behave,
hmm,
whether we meant to or not. So they would be triggered, and that fear is the driving factor. And they're like, so they're projecting. Their projection is extremely unsafe to us because
yeah,
then again, it disconnects us. We go to feeling annihilation, and that's not okay. And sometimes, more often than not, we're shamed in
yeah,
the projection. We're shamed. The anger will lead them to shaming us.
yeah,
So we feel that shame as well. So there's so much disconnection happening right there. Now that happens hundreds of times in our lives as children, if not, even more. However many times it doesn't need to take that many times for us to learn that whenever someone is angry, that's unsafe for me.
hmm,
Because every time someone is angry, it gets taken out on me. I get shamed, even if it's not my fault. Even if they're angry at something else, they're still off with me. I still don't have that connection. I still don't have that love, that togetherness.
yeah,
So whether I cause it or not, whenever someone is angry, it's unsafe to me.
mm,
So as an adult, that unconscious programming is still there. So as an adult, you will talk to your partner and your partner will be angry about something. You might be just sitting down, and it can be as small as sitting down watching TV and your partner's face changes. And because you're hyper attuned and hyper aware, because you've had to be in your childhood to try and understand people, you understand that the subtle facial differences, the subtle facial changes is what changes the mood. And like, oh, you know that they're upset. And the slight element of them being upset will trigger the unsafety wounds of the anger in you. So then you'll be like, well, what's wrong? Let's are you okay? You're like, what's going on?
Mm.
Then that attempt of trying to change them so you feel more comfortable yourself then is an invalidation to how they actually feel. So
Yeah.
then it will trigger them because the invalidation is pain,
Yeah.
which
But
then
what's the approach then? What would you do? What would you have to do differently?
you need to learn how to find safety when other people are angry. And you need to give that safety to yourself.
That's where I really struggle. That's my work right now. That is what I find so hard.
So
Um,
with everything, there's a this is why I teach my framework. With everything, there's an element of following your emotions. That's the first call. Your thoughts or your emotions are the first point of communication to follow to understand. So in a
mm.
moment where someone might be angry, your reaction, there needs to be awareness to your reaction, and then you need to follow that.
So it's like, so it's interesting because it's like, because this is where I think it can, because the conversation with healing is just so huge, and I feel like there's some parts of it that seem to like contradict each other. So like, where we, so let's say for example, I'm being triggered by someone who is angry, and I then have a reaction which might be defensiveness, like, don't talk to me like that, which is like completely defensive, or like, I don't feel comfortable when you talk to me like that.
Yeah.
That's an attempt at finding control and safety
Yeah.
in that moment. And as a result, then the other person then thinks, I've done something wrong
Okay.
and I'm now being attacked for the way that I am. Um, And in that moment, there's complete disconnection.
Mhm.
Both people are responding to an unconscious automatic wound pattern. So how can so if I was to uh respond differently to sort of turn the cog on the wheel a bit, what would I have to do?
So where's the contradiction?
Oh, so the contradiction is that
I think
the
I
it
think
go on.
I think I know what you're saying. What you're doing is you're comparing the internal feelings to the behavior. Because
Yeah.
what I'm saying there is you need to understand yourself. It has nothing to do with your behavior.
Hmm.
Not even at the stage of your behavior at that stage. We're just I need to understand why I feel like this.
Yeah.
Behavior
No,
is secondary.
yeah, so I understand to some degree why I feel because my dad was very snappy, quite moody. He was very like short. That would be hold the memory that's come to mind is hold the map. Like I'm trying to drive. I need you to read, but I couldn't read maps, so I'd panic and think, oh no, he's so mad with me. And anyway, that sort of thing, hyper alert, hyper attuned. Oh no, I don't want to be in the wrong, and it developed my sense of self.
Yeah.
So I'm very like automatically think I'm going to be criticized and blamed. Um, so in those moments, I guess then must be about going, oh, that part of me is here and validating it then. But then does it not? Because this is where I feel like it contradicts, like, where do you then have boundary? How do you then have boundaries with people? Like if you're thinking, I need to allow this person to be what they are, be who they are, express themselves as they are, but also, do you see what I'm
Yeah, I
getting?
see what you're saying. So I think it would really help to kind of start with the explanation of a conscious relationship. So
Yeah,
conscious relationship, like you said earlier, is where, look, I'm going to work on myself.
yeah,
You're going to work on yourself, and we're both going to work on the relationship at the same time.
yeah,
When I'm working on myself, you need to hold space for me. When you're working on yourself, I need to hold space for you.
yeah. That I mean, that's it. That's answered the question actually,
Yeah.
because it's like it's.
But let's go for anyone listening. Let's go a little bit further into the kind of example. So in the example that you gave there, if I'm speaking to my partner and my partner responds in an angry way and that triggers me,
Mm,
with me being in a relationship where we both have the awareness that we're holding space for each other, I can work on myself in that moment. And then I can communicate going, listen, um, I'm finding it really unsafe right now. Like what just happened there, your anger is really, really unsafe for me. Now, the other person is aware, and there's an agreement that when we're triggered, we'll hold space for each other. If we're both triggered, we need to both hold space with each other. Maybe that might mean we'll take each we'll walk away for 20 minutes and come back or something, if that's the
mm,
case. But there needs to be that like understanding that, oh, I'm triggered right now. Plus, the awareness to you being triggered actually will take you to a place of having options, having choices of behaving differently. So,
mm,
for example, you could be like, well, I know I'm scared right now because of his anger, but I know that's just me being scared. So maybe my response doesn't need to be so kind of like, um, let's say, attacking or defensive.
mm,
That's my way of holding space for him.
mm.
But if I'm the only one that's ever holding space, then that's something I need to kind of bring up as well. Like, why aren't you ever holding space for me? Why am I always holding space?
Yeah, see, that's where I think a lot of people are like, because there's the whole conversation of when you change, the world changes. When you change the way you look at things, things you look at change. And so a lot of people are trying to change themselves to change other people, you know? So that's where I think a lot of people are going, oh, I'm getting this reflection back of them because there's obviously something
There's,
within
yeah,
me, but they're missing the point of like, but I'm willingly being a participant in this unconscious relationship.
yeah, and that's why it won't work, by the way. You cannot, if your goal is to change yourself to change someone else, it will not work. That's not how
No,
the reality works.
yeah, yeah,
Because you cannot get to these parts of yourself if it's like a to-do list.
yeah.
The only, and I'm being very serious when I say this. The only thing you need to do when you go to these parts of yourself is be there for them.
Mm,
That's it. That's literally it. Obviously, you have to learn how to be there for them, but that's what you need to do. If you are going there to heal them so you can,
yeah,
then you're not being there for them.
yeah. It's really interesting when because I think you can have different motives operating at the same time. So
Mhm.
like you can have a motive that's like, I need to heal because I need to heal because there's clearly something going on that's affecting my life. And then there might also be a motive going, oh, yes. And if I do that, then this person might change or this thing might change. But that one almost for a lot of people will trump the one that matters. And I found that whenever you take that one away, whenever you take the other person out of the equation and where they are and you let them be where they are, then it becomes so much easier to be with your experience and to go, of course I feel like this. So one of my favorite phrases is
Mm.
of course I feel like this. Of course this has happened. Of
Validate.
course. Like just so simple and so validating, of course, to everything, you know,
Makes sense.
makes sense. That's another one of my favorite ones. But whenever there's even a little part of us that's like, and then this will happen because I fixed this within me. It's almost like that's always going to overpower until we understand, why do I need this person to change? Why do I need this person to be a certain way so I can feel this? Why? And
Yeah.
until we understand that, we're always going to be chasing something out there that will not allow us to do the thing that we really want to do, which is be whole and complete within ourselves and feel connected to all parts.
Yeah, and
So,
it doesn't mean that you should be okay with someone not changing. Like, so for example, it it's okay to want someone to change,
mm,
but that's entirely down to the individual, not you.
yeah, yeah,
So you can even communicate, hey, I don't really like it when you do that. That's not okay with me. And you can do that. But if you're going internally to make changes within yourself so someone else changes, then that's not self-love. That's seeing kind of like, in a way, it's like seeing a part of yourself as the reason of why you're unhappy. And that's why I'm saying it won't work, because if you're going towards that part of yourself with that unconscious way of being, then that part is simply not going to come forward. You're not going to be
Yeah.
able to do it. It will not happen.
So once I stayed in a relationship uh for a really, really long time a while ago, and I had a therapist who would say, and this is where I would get really confused in my head, where she would say, it's all you, basically, as in she wasn't saying it's all my fault or whatever, but she was saying you need to heal this feeling, so otherwise you're going to take it into every relationship, basically. You need to heal this reaction, you need to heal this response, which is why, like I was saying before, I think a lot of people get confused and then allow themselves to stay in basically an environment that will not be conducive to healing because you haven't got the connection. I think connection is everything when it comes to healing. You haven't got the mirror of connection and that essential validation. That I'm not saying that they need to validate everything, but the opportunity
Mhm.
to be seen in those difficult moments. And I was, essentially, I was living in Australia and my partner was basically an alcoholic. He was completely avoidant, didn't understand any of this. And I was getting the message from the content and from people that I needed to be okay with. Essentially, what I thought was I need to be okay with. There's something that I'm not okay with in myself, which is why I'm struggling so much with this person. And I need to heal this part of me so that I can just be happy here. And all of that was just making me suppress parts of me rather than allow me to acknowledge it, if that
Yeah,
makes sense.
it does. There's so much in there. Even like our understanding of what happy is again. Like I
Yeah.
have to be happy. Oh, that means I need to not feel bad. So whenever
Yeah.
I feel bad, I'm going to push that down
Mm.
because I
Yeah.
need to not be like that. And that's again the whole concept of, okay, well, it's just the way you manifest is you got to reject the bad feelings and you got to only feel good. It's like that is not how
I
reality
know.
is.
I think
How
it all
manifesting.
started with The Secret, the book, The
Yeah.
Secret. I mean, that's very much based on that sort of principle, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think that's been like the Bible of manifestation for a long time. And there needs to be a new one because there's a whole like world that you're talking about that is you should write this book. You are
I
writing this
am.
book.
It's actually my second book. It's actually a course that is going to go live in the next couple of days. I've called it the cheat code, and
Yeah.
the book itself is going to be called the cheat code as well.
Oh,
So it's
nice.
already and I go deep into reality, how reality works, what is going on, how you're actually going through realities, what that means, what manifestation itself means, and how to manifest in the most powerful ways that I've come across.
Wow.
And then
Uh,
the idea is the first book is human, which is like an understanding of your internal world to the
mm,
degree where you'll be able to integrate fully and understand any aspect of any communication that comes up in any part of your reality. And then the second book is going to be the cheat code. So then both of them together essentially is going to be you're going to understand yourself. And because you create reality, you're going to be able to understand how to manifest anything you want.
amazing. Well, if anybody's interested in that, who's watching this, I will put the links down in the description so that you can find Ariane's pages, YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. You're on TikTok as
I
well.
yeah, TikTok as well. Yeah.
TikTok's your big one, isn't it? So yes, you can find out how you can do any of Ariane's courses or get coaching or jump on this new course, buy the book when it comes out. Um, I think we could probably talk for ages and ages and ages, and maybe we should wrap it up. Because oh my God, it's just like you say, when one answer comes, another question comes. But yeah, thank you so much for having this conversation with me. And yeah, it's
Thanks for having
been
me.
really good conversation.
Yeah, I've
Um,
enjoyed it.
right. I'm gonna end this recording. But yeah, thanks for watching everybody. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.
Bye.